And we are recording. So now we're going to look at slipping the body. So in Alfred Hutton's Cold Steel, not to be confused with any of the numerous other knife manuals called Cold Steel, or alternatively the company Cold Steel, which makes knives, Hutton has a series of plays. It's weird because he's doing a medieval-inspired knife system. He uses medieval pedagogy rather than like a sort of post-Enlightenment pedagogy, which, okay. But most of his plays are defenses, and most of them are you slip the body and countercut somehow. So let's say I have an opponent who decides to go deep. There are a lot of knife systems out there that do practice that way. They don't emphasize fighting the knife hand, and in some cases they'll actually try and stop students from relentlessly hunting the knife hand to try and get them to be more well-rounded or whatever, which I think is a bit backwards. I think that you should let students relentlessly hunt the knife hand until it stops working for them. Because then they'll learn how to go to the body after shutting down, off the back of attacking the knife hand. Whereas if you teach them to go to the body straight up and they go to the body, they'll get counter hit by someone who basically relentlessly counter hits. So the first movement we learn is what's termed the slip, or slipping the body. I'm just going to call it the slip and hope that it doesn't get too confusing with slipping the hand. All right. So there are two ways to slip. The first is I basically bounce upright, not quite that jumpy. I just basically stand directly upright and bring my feet together. And you can see how from a mid-weighted stance, this pulls my whole body back. The advantage of this kind of slip is it's a lot quicker in terms of getting back. The disadvantage of this type of slip is once I then want to return, I need to squat down and extend out, which is slower. So faster to escape, slower to return. The other type of slip, all I do is I rock my weight back and pull my foot so that my knees are in line. I think there's some debris there, so I'll just move out of the way for you. So that my knees are in line and my back foot is back. The advantage of this type of slip is that when it comes time to lunging, I can throw this leg forward to get myself some extra impetus, which means I can either I get a slightly faster lunge or even a slightly deeper lunge. The disadvantage of this type of slip is it's a little slower because I have to transition my waist first. I'm not getting my body back quite as quick, although it's still plenty quick enough. And there are plenty of people who slip quite well like this. The other weird advantage of this one is if I need to keep moving back, I kind of can, whereas with the first type of slip, where I slip to, was actually referred to as first position because in regimental drills, this is the first position of the sword drill. If I then want to move backwards, I've got the same problems with impetus that I have coming forward. So depending on which one you use, you've got the option of either having a smooth retreat and return, or a quicker retreat for a slower return. All right, so let's look at those motions in detail. So for the first slip, or slip to first position, all I do is I stand bolt upright and basically kind of jump my front foot into my back foot. And it's more than acceptable to lift off the ground a couple of centimeters. So all it is slip. So I'll show that from the front. Again, all I'm doing is standing bolt upright and keeping my back foot in the same place, which causes me to basically spring back. And I'm very much pushing off my front foot to do that. Right, so let's practice that a few times. Should do side on because I think it's a better angle. Is everyone ready? I'm just going to call slip and I want you to jump back. So slip, slip, and slip, slip, and once more for luck, slip. Just for reference, what you do with your hand when you're doing this varies. I'm just leaving it in guard because I don't want you to practice something with it that you then have to modify to do other things. But depending on where my opponent is going, I move my hand. So if my opponent is going at my face, I might move my hand down and then come back up with the false edge. If my opponent is going for my leg, I might move my hand up to come back down faster. If my opponent is, say, going for my belly, like they're throwing a really deep thrust, I might actually do an inwards disengage to come around. What I do with my hand kind of depends on circumstance. If we had time for a full lesson on just slipping, I teach all of those, but tonight I just want you to get the footwork down. So let's look at the other type of the other slip. So for this, I lift my toes up, I roll on, when I get my weight on my back foot, I whip my back foot, I just bring my back leg back. I keep everything bent, so I'll just show you that from the front. My knees stay bent. I don't want to stand upright because that means I get the worst of both worlds when it comes to slipping. I want to keep everything bent because that also means that I've got explosive impetus for my back leg to come forward. And not, the whole advantage of the slip is it means I come back quicker. So, again, just lifting up onto my heels, slipping back, and then swinging my back foot back until my knees are in line. And I want you to think knees in line. If you want, you can actually touch your knees together. If you want tactile feedback, just make sure you don't trip yourself over when you come back, which can happen, but usually doesn't. And yeah, just do it slow the first few to make sure. All right, so is everyone ready? Slip, back, slip, and back, slip, and back, slip, and back, slip, back, slip, and back, slip, and back, and slip, and back. All right, so moving my body like this means, or moving everything backwards, means that I can move my head, my leg, my body, even, to be honest, even my knife arm, my knife hand. And if I'm doing like this kind of forward guard, my grabby hand as well, out of distance fairly effectively. Like it's kind of it's a catch-all defense. There are parries. I can do parries like I do with sword, but outside the fact that they're much riskier with this weapon, they only work against one attack, whereas slipping works against pretty much any attack that isn't made towards the knife hand. Or, your offhand if you're holding it forward. Actually, even then, just getting it out of the way is good. All right, so let's look at returning. So doing the first slip again, we're going to imagine that our opponent has decided to dive for our leg. They've gone really low, and they're trying to chop us in the knee, which is a thing a lot of people naturally do. So what we're going to do, slip. We're going to bring our hand up to this position, which is high tierce. So we're here, and then to come back, we're going to come back. We're just going to bend our knees and chop down. I'm going to rely on the fact that our opponent has come forward and is committed, but we don't need to come back too much. And then come back to guard. So just show that from the side. I'm going to slip, chop, back to guard. All right, so let's just do that by numbers. So slip, chop, back to guard. 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 All right, so now let's say my opponent has gone for my head. So I want to slip, get my head out of the way, and then all I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drop my hand slightly, just slightly, but I'm going to bring my tip up I'm going to thrust. And the idea is if my opponent's knife hand is extended, I can stab them in the knife hand from here. And when we do this, I want to actually finish finish my slip position with the stab because I want to hit my opponent's arm while it's high. And if I wait, they're going to pull their hand out of the way and I'm going to miss it. So all we do for this is I bring my feet together and lift my knife up and hit. And bring it down slightly, get a bit of impetus, I think, does help. It's kind of nice. So all we're doing is slip and stab. 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 And what's more for luck? Slip and stab. All right. So those two hand movements work equally well with the other slip here. This can work quite nicely. This, not quite as nice, so you need to come back a little bit because of where your legs are. Although I have seen people who are much stronger, have much stronger legs than I, actually drop down like this and countercut. The other variant, weirdly enough, is you can just keep going with your slip and counterweight, and that can be quite fun. But what we're going to learn with this slip is how to take full advantage of, kicking the foot back out. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip, and we're going to assume our opponent ran, so we're going to chase after them to a full lunge, or alternatively a half lunge. You're more than welcome to just do a quick lunge as well. I just like doing the full lunge because I find that it's a really, really good exercise. And also a really good exercise to do solo if you're just looking for something to practice and you want to build up your lunge. So, here, slip. When you come back, I extend, kick out, and lunge. Slip, extend, kick out, lunge. And back. Slip, extend, kick. I'm coming to the exact same foot position I have for every other lunge. And just roll forward. And because I naturally try and do this quite deep to show off, I tend to throw my hand back for counterbalance. You don't need to, it's just something I like to do. All right, so slip and lunge. Slip and lunge. Slip and lunge. And what's more for luck? Slip and lunge. And back to guard. Right. So that is slipping to defend the body, which works against pretty much everything. We'll just stop now if there's any questions. But before I forget, one comment I will make is, as you're learning, what tends to happen is you tend to choose one of the two slips and use that as the main slip that you do until you get a bit more experience and you kind of get how things roll. And then you start integrating the other type style of slipping into your knife game. Which, yeah, just generally I find as a bit of a teaching philosophy, it's a good idea to go for what works, or what is most intuitive first, and then from there, sort of expand out and like learn other things. Right, so are there any questions? Right, that's looking like a no. Let's close recording. I'll knock my phone over, 1 and 2.